person. What is here is that the seven spirits are given a definition of prophecy upon man. In other words, Job is the replacement of the original man that God created, and this was what was expected of the man that God created in his image. If you will look at Job, and when Adonai, you call God, is speaking to Job, he is actually giving Job the definition of man's duties, of what he should do on earth in order to please God. This is really what's going on here. The Holy Ghost showed me as plain as day that Job, the reason no one can find Job and they don't know where he lived and about his family, these are additives done by man. But if you look at what God is explaining to Job, what he's putting Job through when he loses his family, and then he grants him more than what he thought he had lost, and Job never gave up from the faith in the belief in Adonai. When Job stated that, why was I born? Then God explains to Job what's going on here. In the entire book of Job, he's explaining to Job the duty of man spiritually. Now, if you listen to and read Job very careful, this is not a flesh man that Adonai is talking to. This is the inner man spirit of what is expected from all human beings upon the face of the earth that's born of the earth, from the dust of the ground. And God is showing Job, which is really all men, in order to be a just man in the eyes of God, you have to be as a man as Job. Do you follow what I'm saying? In other words, God is showing through Job, which is really a spirit. He's not a human. Job is a spiritual man that's perfect. This is why God says that Job was a just man in all of his ways. And if any man could be a just man as Job, which is spirit, then that man God loved more than them all. And when you compare the laws of Mushi that you call Moses, and the commandments, and the dreams that all the dreamers had that made them twist in their bed from confusion, as Daniel and Ezekiel and all of the prophets besides Mushi and besides Elijah the holy prophet. These are only two, because there's two of the seven spirits of God. That's why they had no real problem, like they're trying to say they had a problem. But now it's understood that God is telling man, after reading the book of Job, that this is the type of man that I expect you to be when I placed you on earth, in order to defy the evilness of evil, which is called Satan. What one must understand, ladies and gentlemen, is this: sin and death is really the thought of evil. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Look at what God told Adam, the sixth-day man, once he put it into motion. When he placed the tree was of knowledge. You understand? Knowledge. The knowledge was you could understand what is evil, and you also could understand what is good and righteous. The same as Job is going through. And Job is understanding from Adonai, Elohim, what it takes to be a righteous, perfect man as Job. So Adonai, God, is using Job as the example for mankind to follow Job. No matter how much pain you have, Adonai knows your pain. He causes the pain when you do evil, and he grants you when you do good. And this is the picture that we should look at in order to become a man pleased in the eyes of Adonai that you call God, which is Elohim, the seven spirits of God. And so, make no mistake on the book of Job and try to trace him down. You can never find Job. And don't try to see why Job took these things and those things and punishment from Satan, because it all goes back to what God is telling us, not Job. Job is the perfect example that God actually expects of us. When you see whatever it was that Job did, he was yet perfect in his ways. Whether he suffered, whether he had boils, whether he had pain, whether he's seen death of his family, whether his friends turn against him, the saying goes to a man of wisdom of the two greatest commandments that God gave to man. And it's all described in Job. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul. Job had this. Second, love thy neighbor as thyself. Job had this perfectly in his heart. In other words, Job had no evil from that tree of mankind. And this is the whole teaching of Adonai to man, woman, human on this earth, till this earth be no more. And this is what Job really is. And it's stunning to see actually what God has done. God wrote this book himself, placed it into another man's hand to write the law and the commandments that Moses gave in the law of Deuteronomy, Ecclesiastics, Solomon's songs, David's poems. All of these things boil down to what God was showing Job. And that was the law. The law was, when God quoted, thou shalt not do this or thou shalt surely die, this is what he showed Job. Why? And not to give up faith in your Creator. God showed us, everybody's wondering if God exists. Well, let's look. God shows Job of what he can do, how he can do it. When he speaks to Job, he says, can you show me where the light starts from, or can you show me the end? Can you show me where light meets dark? And can you show me where dark begins? This is what he's telling Job, and then he shows Job. And he tells Job about the ice and the snow. That snow is hard as a rock, water is hard as a rock once it freezes, because it becomes ice. And he tells Job how this is done, and who does it, and what causes it. And if you will notice that when he lost his sisters and his family members, there was a strong wind that came out of the north of heaven and killed them. How did the wind kill them, though? It didn't say it was a hurricane or an earthquake. No, what it was, the wind of the elements, of the voice of Adonai from those gamma rays that can produce any element that God so chooses. And the DNA of any element obeys what God actually is, that he is actually everything. And this is why nothing is impossible with God. If God is everything, Adonai, Elohim, that means nothing is impossible. And this is what he's showing man, not Job. Job is the example expected of man. And God is showing you through Job, because the reason no one can get it and understand it is they're looking at Job as a flesh man. Job was not a flesh man. Job was a vision of what God expected out of Adam and his children. Let's look again to show you what evil is, who Satan is, and what is Satan. Now, when God placed the tree of good and evil, let's look at what God actually really tells man.